Okay, picture this. The entire nation of Israel has been waiting, preparing, and sweating for a full week. And now today is the day. They are either going to see the glory of God physically manifest right in front of them, or they are going to completely fail. The tension here is just absolutely incredibly high. So let's dive right into this explainer and begin our chronological journey directly into the text. We are looking at a pivotal, highly physical moment in the narrative. And we're going to break it all down step by step so you can see exactly what is happening, who is doing it, and honestly, why it all matters.
Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Leviticus chapter 9 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We are jumping straight into the action here, focusing strictly on the plain text and the events exactly as they unfold on the ground. We aren't going to be skipping around. Instead, we'll be breaking down every difficult action and term so you can truly, deeply grasp the narrative. So the very first verse of chapter 9 gives us our exact chronological setting. It simply begins with the phrase, on the 8th day. But to truly understand what that means, we kind of have to remember what literally just happened. For the previous 7 days, Aaron and his sons have been undergoing this really rigorous ordination process. They've been physically staying at the entrance of the tent of meeting, day and night. So when verse 1 says, on the 8th day, Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, it means the long week of waiting is officially over. We are at a very specific point in time. This 8th day marks a massive transition in leadership. Moses is basically handing the keys over. He's shifting the operation of the physical sacrificial system entirely over to Aaron. But before Aaron can officially take up this mantle for the nation, a highly specific sequence of events must absolutely occur today. Section 1. The 8th day context. Let's set the scene.
The entire assembly of the Israelites has come near, and they are standing right there before the Lord. There is this palpable, heavy sense of anticipation in the air. And in verse 4, Moses tells Aaron and the people exactly what the stakes are. He says, "This is what the Lord has commanded you to do, so that the glory of the Lord may appear to you." Moses makes a direct, literal promise here. If the community follows these exact physical instructions, God's glory will physically manifest right in their presence. This isn't a metaphor. It's not a symbol. The people are waiting for a visible, undeniable confirmation from God.
Section 2. Preparing the first sacrifices.
Now, what's really fascinating about this next part is the specific preparation required before anything else happens. Moses doesn't just tell them to go meditate or pray, he gives them a highly detailed, strict shopping list of sacrifices. Looking at verses 2 and 3, Moses commands Aaron to take a bull calf for his sin offering and a ram for his burnt offering. The crucial detail here is that both of these animals must be strictly without defect. They have to be completely unblemished. But why these specific offerings? Well, in simple English, a sin offering is designed to clear the slate. It removes impurity. A burnt offering, on the other hand, represents total, complete dedication to God. And notice the order here, because it's so important. Aaron must bring these to make atonement for himself first. Before he can do absolutely anything for the Israelites, the high priest has to address his own status and purity.
Then, moving into verses 3 and 4, Moses turns to the Israelites. He commands an extensive, huge array of animals for the people's offering. They are instructed to bring a male goat for a sin offering, then a calf and a lamb, both strictly 1-year-old and without defect, for a burnt offering, plus an ox and a ram for a fellowship offering. And on top of all this livestock, they also have to bring a grain offering mixed with oil. Notice the contrast here, right? Aaron brings 2 animals for himself. The people bring an absolutely massive collection. This impressive, large-scale collection of offerings builds the essential physical foundation required for the entire community's atonement. It's a huge undertaking.
Section 3. Aaron at the altar. Let's watch this unfold. Okay, so the crucial point is that all this theory now becomes intense physical practice. In verses 8 and 9, Aaron steps up to the altar to start with his own sin offering, the calf. The narrative outlines his exact physical actions in incredibly visceral detail. Step 1, he slaughters the calf. Step 2, his sons bring the blood to him, he dips his own finger directly into it, and he physically smears that blood onto the horns of the altar. Step 3, he pours out the rest of the heavy blood right at the base of the altar. It's a precise, methodical, and honestly, a very physical choreography of atonement. Everything has to be exactly right. Moving over to verses 10 and 11, Moses' instructions specify a really sharp contrast in how the different parts of this sin offering are handled. What gets kept for the altar fire? Well, Aaron takes the fat, the kidneys, and the covering of the liver, and he burns them right there on the altar. The fat is considered the richest, best part, so naturally it is given directly to God. But what about the rest? The narrative is explicitly clear here. The flesh and the hide are taken completely outside the camp and burned up there. Why? Because the flesh and hide of a sin offering for a priest literally absorb the sin and impurity. To fully cleanse the camp, that impurity must be completely removed from the holy precinct and destroyed far, far away. So then in verses 12 through 14, once his sin offering is totally complete, Aaron moves immediately to his burnt offering, which is the ram. He slaughters it, and his sons hand him the blood. He sprinkles it against the altar on all sides. They hand him the offering piece by piece, including the head. But pay close attention to verse 14. Aaron carefully washes the inner parts and the legs with water before burning them. Why wash them? Well, because this represents absolute, total purification before approaching God. Nothing unclean, not even a little bit of dirt, can be placed on the altar. After washing them, he burns everything entirely on top of the altar. His personal slate is now completely 100% clean.
Section 4. Offerings for the people. Now that his own slate is totally clean, Aaron shifts his focus in verse 15 to offering sacrifices for the entire assembly. He is stepping fully into his role as the true mediator for the community. He methodically processes the people's offerings according to the exact same prescribed rules. He takes the male goat for the people's sin offering, slaughters it, and offers it just as he did with his own calf earlier. Then he brings their burnt offering, the calf and the lamb. In verse 17, he also brings the grain offering. And what does grain represent? It represents human labor, our agriculture, our daily sustenance. He takes a literal handful of this grain and burns it on the altar in addition to the morning's regular burnt offering. He is layering these sacrifices exactly as he was commanded to do.
Finally, in verses 18 through 21, Aaron slaughters the ox and the ram as the fellowship offering for the people. His sons hand him the blood to sprinkle, and they separate the fat portions. Aaron burns the fat on the altar. But right here we see a really unique, highly visual action in verse 21. Aaron takes the breasts and the right thigh of the animals and physically waves them before the Lord. This is called a Tenufah in Hebrew. It translates to a literal waving motion. This Tenufah symbolizes presenting the absolute best portions to God, and then symbolically receiving them back as a shared meal. It signifies this profound, beautiful fellowship and peace between the people, the priests, and God.
Section 5. The glory appears.
We now reach the climax of the chapter. In verse 22, Aaron has meticulously completed everything. The sin offering, the burnt offering, and the fellowship offering are all done. He then lifts his hands toward the people, blesses them, and steps down from the altar. The physical work is officially done. Right after he steps down, verse 23 tells us that Moses and Aaron walk into the tent of meeting together. The suspense here is just incredible. The text actually does not tell us what they said or did inside. Because we are strictly sticking to the simple text, the Peshat, we don't guess or add any mystical assumptions. But whatever happened in there, when the two leaders finally emerge, they stand together and bless the people one more time. And this exact moment triggers the ultimate fulfillment of what Moses promised at the start of the day. The glory of the Lord appears to all the people. Verse 24 describes a literal, physical manifestation, and honestly, it is breathtaking. It reads, "Fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat portions on the altar." I want you to really try and picture this in your mind. It is a sudden, awe-inspiring display of divine acceptance. This fire doesn't come from a human torch. It doesn't come from flint or friction or anything man-made. It comes directly, miraculously from God's presence, instantly consuming those carefully prepared sacrifices that were just sitting there on the altar.
You can only imagine the utter shock and awe of the Israelites standing there after a whole week of waiting and preparing. The end of verse 24 perfectly captures their raw, immediate physical reaction. When all the people see this miraculous fire, they immediately shout for joy, and simultaneously, they fall face down to the ground. Think about that incredibly powerful dichotomy for a second. How often do you see ecstatic, uncontainable joy exist in the exact same fraction of a second as absolute, terrifying reverence? They are absolutely thrilled that God accepted their offering, but they are utterly humbled and awestruck by the sheer power of His literal physical presence among them.
Section 6. Lessons from the fire.
To truly understand the power of this chapter, we use a concept called Peshat. Peshat refers to the plain text read strictly within its context. It represents the most basic, literal meaning of the scripture. By sticking to the Peshat, we focus on the actual, physical events described. We look at the precise actions, the chronology, and the direct outcomes. We don't need to look outside the narrative or rely on deep, mystical symbolism to find profound meaning here. And you might be wondering, why does this matter to us today? Well, because the life lessons we pull from these literal events are incredibly practical for our own lives right now.
So, what are our practical lessons strictly from this plain reading? First, precise obedience precedes God's presence. Moses gave exact instructions, Aaron followed them to the absolute letter, and only then did the fire fall. Second, leaders absolutely must look to their own flaws first. Think of this like the safety briefing on an airplane. You literally have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can assist anyone else. Aaron had to make atonement for his own sins before he could effectively mediate for the people. You simply cannot lead others to purity if your own house is a mess. And third, diligent, step-by-step preparation leads to true joy. The meticulous hard work of preparing those sacrifices resulted in the entire community shouting for ecstatic joy.
Let's quickly recap our chronological journey today to really lock this into your memory. We started on the 8th day with the immense tension of the assembly gathered at the tent of meeting. We saw Aaron meticulously perform his own personal sacrifices of the calf and the ram to purify himself. Then we watched him methodically process the massive array of offerings for the people, including that highly visual Tenufah, or wave offering. Finally, after the leaders blessed the assembly, we witnessed the climactic, miraculous consuming fire directly from the Lord, resulting in the people simultaneously falling face down in terrifying awe and shouting for absolute joy.
Before we wrap up, I want you to ask yourself a question. In your own life, are you doing the meticulous, step-by-step preparation required to invite true joy and profound purpose into your world? Think about that as you go about your day. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.